regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by municipality or local board be received, and that Council Report CAO 2024-005, CAO Work Plan, performance regarding labor relations or employee negotiations be received, and that confidential report CPS 2024-014, committee appointments, Orangeville Police Services Board regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Up next, we have the adoption of previous council meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the following meetings be approved. The public meeting from February 12th and council meeting minutes from February 26th, and again, council public meeting minutes from March 4th, all be received. Can I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We'll move now on to question period. If there's any member of the public connecting via telephone, you're reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. And there is a maximum of 3 minutes to ask their question. Is there anybody on the phone? We'll start with that. You don't see anybody? Okay, so if we've got anybody in the gallery, you can go ahead and approach. And if you just want to have a seat, please state your name and address for the record, and you can go ahead and ask your question. We need your microphone on, please, Mr. Christo. We got it for you. It's on. Go ahead.
Better?
Yep.
My name is Nick Christo. I live on 20 Paula Court, L9W5V1. And the reason I'm here tonight, first of all, good evening, everyone, staff, council members, and those that they watch on television at home. So good evening again. Couple of questions. The first, is the bridge on Hanson Boulevard, is that done?
Sorry, is it what?
The bridge, Hanson Boulevard Bridge, is that finished yet or no?
Yes, so the construction on our end is completed.
Okay.
And at this time, we're just waiting for the developer to take on the next steps.
Okay, now, when are the rest of the road you're looking at to have that open?
That will be, do you want to take it? Okay, CEO Smith.
Yeah, thank you very much. And through you, that is a question we've been asked many times. We have actually developed a communication to put on our website. So in the next few days, you'll be able to see the current status of that proposal on our website. Residents can always look for the updated information on that. And I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the reason I ask the question, because when I campaigned, that was part of my platform that I would have had the road open for vehicle traffic and also pedestrian traffic. So I'm very happy to hear the bridge is done, but I hope that we move on and open the road, because a few people, they already asked me.
Absolutely.
When is going to be open?
As you know, Mr. Christo, we don't actually own the land as a municipality, so we have to allow the developer to be the one to build the road, because it's not owned by the town of Orangeville. So we are relying on the developer to do their due diligence, and we're as eager to get it open as everybody else in the community is. So thank you.
I understand that you don't own the land, but I also understand that you have the power to take the land if you want to put a road through.
No, that
is a fact. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Was there any additional questions? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. My first question is about the Broadway clock and what the status is for that, because I believe in the last update it was supposed to have been completed in February. And then my other question is regarding the Alder condenser report that'll be coming to council later. One of the bullet points here says demolition and reconstruction of the library wall. So does that mean the library will be closed during this time while the construction is happening at Alder? And is there an estimated timeline if it will be closed? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Who wants to take those? I'll start with Mr. Koslak.
Through your worship, for the clock tower, it's probably right now about more of a May timeframe. The supplier is manufacturing the clock face. They're recommending waiting till the warmer weather is here. So when the caulking and all the waterproofing is put in, it'll cure properly. In the wintertime, it doesn't cure as well, so it'll probably be around that May timeframe to have it completed.
Yep, thank you.
And Ms. Savage, do you want to take the other?
Thank you, Mayor Post. The library will be closed during when we have to remove the wall to put the condenser in. We don't have a formalized plan. We need to secure the funding first, then we'll work with the contractor and we'll work backwards, figuring out timelines.
Do you know, one more question, Mayor Post? Do you know if that's going to be an internal wall or the external walls for the library that's going to be removed? I figure if it's an internal wall, it might be replaced faster.
It's internal, but I will actually will have to double check that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions from members of the gallery? Yeah, come on up. You just need to state your name and address for the record. And then you can ask your question.
Marina Reed, 12 Karen Court. I just wanted to make comment on the noise bylaw. So I appreciate all the work that was done on that. Just a couple of questions. It feels rather vague to me, and it does seem like the person that isn't really causing any trouble is still taking the brunt of the problem. So I'm thinking that it would be beneficial to have the protocol set out so that other people can see what is going to happen and what the course of action is if they are not being considerate. It was very vague to me. I had to email a bylaw officer who was very cooperative in telling me, but everyone's not going to do that. And it is pretty important, I would think, that the person that is creating the problem is aware. The fines also, it's great that they're there, but they do seem also a bit vague, so that somebody who is causing the problem, I think it needs to be really clear of what the situation is and what's going to happen. And somebody who has a complaint would know exactly what they need to do and who they need to go to. So I'm feeling that that is a little bit vague. It also didn't mention how many times you have to keep a log, what needs to be in the log, and how long that has to go on until you can actually make a complaint, and who that complaint should be to. Is it a bylaw officer? Is it the OPP? So like these are really like the crux of the matter here. It looks like we are hoping that people are being considerate, but the time frame again is vague. People still think that they can be as loud as they want until 11 o'clock at night. So is this a 24/7 bylaw that says you're supposed to be considerate all that time, every day and every night? It's very clear in the Appendix B of that bylaw how the time frame for construction and lawn vehicles, et cetera, but it wasn't very clear at all of those questions for actual noise. So, and noise is the thing that I'm concerned about, and other people who have to suffer with those who aren't considerate with how loud they're playing their music. I understand there's no distance because the goal is to try to be proactive if it does go to trial. Hopefully, of course, it doesn't get to that point. But again, I think some clarity really does need to be present in this bylaw so that it can be more effective.
Thank you for your comments. Was there any comments from members of staff on any of those items who wanted to take them? Yeah.
I'll just comment.
CEO Smith, yeah.
Tanetta, and you know, we appreciate the feedback. There is a difference between a bylaw and procedure, and some of the things I think that the person is speaking about is procedure on how we will do things, and those aren't always articulated, and very many times aren't articulated within a bylaw. Procedures can be updated as needed and can be changed as needed without the full process of a bylaw review. But we'll certainly take the feedback, and the general manager may want to make some additional comments.
Ms. Minikilo?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Post, I would add that another critical component of this is an education campaign which accompanies our bylaws when we launch them. And the other piece to consider is when we launch a new or updated bylaw, a good chunk of that time is reviewing and sort of seeing where we might need to make some edits or changes. So seeing what's working in practice and what isn't working in practice. So there is a bit of that at the beginning as well. So I think those pieces plus the procedure piece hopefully help to address some of the questions that you've raised tonight.
Okay, thank you both for that. I understand about the procedure. I do think a little note in there, it doesn't have to be the entire procedure. I also think the time frame is extremely important. Is it a 24/7 bylaw or is it until 11? I think that's particularly helpful. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Any additional questions, James?
I actually just wanted to come up. James Jackson, 50 Carlton Drive, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W2X9. I actually just wanted to come up and say thank you to you for addressing for 14.1 to address the federal government about with this carbon tax. It's, in my opinion, it's actually going to make everything unaffordable to even live. And I wonder how many people are going to be cast out of their homes, or because rent's going to go up, mortgages are go up, not to mention the cost of food just to eat. So thank you. I just wanted to say that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. To be clear, though, my motion doesn't address the carbon tax as a process. It addresses the rebate that we receive as a small municipality and the top up that we're not receiving that we should be getting. So it doesn't address the merits or non-merits of a carbon tax. That's way beyond our political scope here. They can hash that out at the federal level, but this is just making sure that any of the rebates that do exist are fair and equitable, and that's what I'm looking to address with it. So thank you for the comments. I appreciate it. Was there anybody else in the gallery who has any questions as part of question period? And I'm seeing none, so we will carry on to presentations, petitions, or delegations. There's a reminder that registered delegates and presenters have a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. I do say that because we have 5 on the agenda, but I am going to look for a motion to add a 6th to ensure that Mr. McSweeney can present his 12.6. Can I have a motion for that? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. So we will start with item 12.1, which is Frank Gray Jr. If you just want to hop up to the delegate stand, the mic is already on for you, and you can go ahead and make your presentation.
I'll only need 3 minutes, Your Worship.
Even better.
My name is Frank Gray Jr. I live at Second Line in Mono, 753-405. Been a resident of this area for most of my life. I come to you tonight as president of the Orangeville Lions Club. I'm here tonight to ask, through you, Your Worship, council's permission to put a small display table, probably no bigger than this table I'm sitting at some area in one of the town, either the arena or the library or wherever the council sees that it'll work. We're basically going to show the history of the club over this last 75 years. It's a bit of tooting our own horn. Also looking for more membership. We're always doing that. And the tables would be there for approximately 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on the council's decision. At that point in time, we would tear it down and make sure the area is clean and put back in the way we found it. Our celebration was going to be held April 25th, and we would have this table at our celebration, and then after that, we would like to get some mileage out of it and find a location suitable in the town for that.
Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to say congratulations on 75th anniversary. The Lions Club historically has done a lot of really, really great things in our community, and we're so grateful to have great service clubs like yours that continue to do a lot of the community work. So thank you for that. As for your ask, maybe I will turn it over to Ms. Savage if you want to address that one, if that's a possibility, and then council can move forward with whatever you recommend.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Yes, we can make some space available, but what I suggest is that we just maybe correspond over email and figure out a location that will best suit your needs. If it's a table, there will be nobody attending the table. It's just information available. So maybe there's another way we can display or get that message out interactively within our facilities, but we could maybe chat about it.
Sure.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you need anything at this point from council to be able to do that? No? Okay, good. Councillor Andrews, you have a question?
Very quickly, in addition to, thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Gray, thank you. Congratulations to the Lions. We may have some alternative locations in addition to, of course, Alder and Tony Rose. It could be also potentially the library as an option. I also, you haven't used your 5 minutes. You have another event coming up in April, if I'm not mistaken. So here's an opportunity to plug that too as well.
Thank you.
You could plug that event.
Oh,
Your home show.
Home show.
oh, yes, yes, our home show's coming up and we're looking forward to that. Sorry about that. We've got so many things on the go at the Lions Club. Yes, that is coming up in April and we're looking.
First weekend of April, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We're looking forward to serving, I don't know how many people through that, and hopefully the weather cooperates and we can do a lot of good for the area.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Councillor
much.
Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Gray. Again, congratulations to the Lions Club. Being the chair of Heritage Orangeville, I wanted to let you know that we are in possession of an old photo of the Lions Club actually digging the outdoor pool. We would be happy to share that with you if that's something that you want to put in your display. Unfortunately, now there's concrete on top of that old pool now, and it's a basketball court. But that was something that happened significantly, and there's lots of Lion members digging by hand with the shovel of that pool. If you'd like access to that, I have that.
Appreciate that very much.
Is there any additional questions or comments from members of council? Okay, thank you very much, Frank. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Up next, we will welcome Eden Grodzinski. I'm sorry if I say that last name wrong. The CEO of Habitat for Humanity for Halton, Mississauga, and Dufferin. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening. We had a short slide deck. You've
What's
got
up for you? Yep.
perfect. Is this showing automatically for everybody?
He's just going to share it for us now. Perfect. We can see it there now.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors. It is my real pleasure to be here with you tonight. We often say at Habitat that we are well known but not known well. And so if you'll indulge me, I'll just take a couple of minutes of the 5 minutes to tell you a little bit about our work. If I hit next slide, will it? Pardon? Spacebar. Not working. There we go. When you think about Habitat, you most likely think of images of community volunteers framing one house at a time. And while volunteer builds are an essential part of our DNA, we are now finding it's more economical to build multi-residential developments like the townhouse complexes you see on this slide. We've also begun partnering with private sector builders, creating large development condominiums. They provide us with turnkey units at an affordable rate, which we in turn provide to lower income families. If any of you are aware of developers working in the community that would be interested in partnership, please let us know. Next, can I get you to? Thanks. Our affordable homeownership program is unique. Each of our families pay a mortgage geared to their income, which is recycled back into building more housing. There is also a second silent mortgage attached to each property, which is held by Habitat. This second mortgage reflects the difference between what a homeowner can afford and what the market value of their home is. Built into all of these mortgages are covenants that ensure that any market gains are restricted and shared between Habitat and the homeowner, and that Habitat has first right of refusal so that it remains affordable in perpetuity. There we go. One of the programs we're really excited about bringing to Orangeville is our Youth Skilled Trade program. We know that one of the contributing factors to the affordable housing crisis is the lack of skilled trade workers. We run a unique program which sees high school students build tiny homes on school property as part of their construction classes. The units are then provided to Indigenous communities or local community groups to use as emergency shelter solutions. Like many communities across the country, Orangeville is struggling with housing shortages. Your population is growing, yet the availability of affordable housing units is not keeping pace. Even when people can find a unit to purchase or rent, they are paying more than they can afford. The average resale price of a home in this community is $850,000 right now, which is way above what a typical household can truly afford. And so that brings me to why I'm here tonight. We at Habitat would like to help you increase the number of affordable housing units in your community. We have investigated some of your surplus lands, and we are particularly interested in the former railway land located at 49 Town Line. It is an ideal location close to transit, shopping, and other amenities. Based on our preliminary assessment of the site, we believe that it could house up to 90 units utilizing a stacked townhome design as pictured on this slide. The project would generate multiple community benefits. It would support your growing workforce and would result in additional property tax revenues. It would add to your diversifying your housing mix, encourage community volunteerism, and beautify current lot. It would also provide opportunity for us to access funding from upper levels of government. And by partnering with Habitat, you would ensure that the residents are supported over the long term to ensure successful outcomes and improve quality of life. We appreciate that Council needs to ensure that any use of surplus lands are sustainable and long-standing. We've been exploring innovative mortgage models to improve affordability and ensure that any public investment in affordable housing is preserved in perpetuity. One of the models I'm most excited about is community land trusts. I believe that this would be a good option for 49 Town Line. And so with Council's endorsement, we'd like to begin entering into an MOU with the town, which will outline the components of such a land partnership. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this note, which was written by one of the children living in our Habitat homes. Thank you for this opportunity to have a better life. My dad had a final notice and he was very worried about finding a house for us since it was very expensive. We are so happy that we have a great landlord like you. We don't have to worry about a lot of things now. My dad could focus on his work and me and my siblings could focus on our studies. We have made wonderful memories in this amazing home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Eden. I've always loved our conversations together because I think the work that you do is amazing. And I know that at Council, we're looking for ways for affordable housing units. This is a great proposal. I'd like to open it up for questions from members of Council. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I know that you were looking at me because of the fact that I chair the town's homelessness task force. And one that, in fact, is certainly looking at affordable housing at our regular meetings that are held every month. It is an issue that many of us, in fact, all of us in Council, I know staff, in fact, are very much aware of this. And I think that when we take a look at options and opportunities, they're very much part of the discussion. I do have some questions as for some of the ideas that you put forth. No doubt at a public discussion such as this, further dialogue would be necessary, no doubt. And we have some staff here that can provide some maybe some information within a high-level perspective if necessary. But I think that this is just an opportunity to pose some questions to you as a delegate. You know, when we look at affordable housing, we know what the province is really projecting the shortfall. We know what the income level is on the pressing issues of affordability. The question I wanted to pose to you is if something like this came to fruition, and again, this is just a very preliminary discussion because, we have to get into obviously further dialogue and there's a whole process that would be involved. But if something came to fruition, how long would something like this take? Because one of the pressing issues that exists in our society is the affordability issue now versus on how long it takes to build. What is the typical timeline for some of your projects? You have an ambitious, looks like a 90-unit proposal here, rendering I saw. How long would something like that take based on the experiences that you've had in your other properties around Southern Ontario?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to look back to you because a lot of that has to do with towns and the planning process. So I have seen developments take anywhere from 3 to 12 years. It really depends on the planning process. What may or may not add time is whether there are environmental issues on this site and we have to do remediation. That's what usually, that can slow things down, and you have to let the soil replace it and let it sit for a little bit. But it really depends on how fast a planning process. The construction's the easiest part. Buildings like this can be done in anywhere from 18 to 36 months, depending on how you phase it. But it's the infrastructure and the initial planning that's the longer.
And another part of your presentation is what we define as that sweet spot of affordability. And it differs from every conversation I've had in this community, even members of our task force. It really is something that, are you looking at purchasing? I know what the Habitat for Humanity's model is, but we're also looking at that other side of the pendulum, which is the affordability of rental properties too, and it's gone awry in our community. I am also a former leader in education, post-secondary, and I really appreciate the connection to the trades. There is a shortage of those that are interested in the trades, getting them interested, especially I'm hoping the dialogue is taking place with the Upper Grand District School Board. Having that introduced to our community is going to be a huge windfall. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I just have a question. In our community, there's a shortage of affordable or what is deemed affordable housing for seniors. Would or could there be any provisions to secure some of these 90 units exclusively for seniors?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Habitat's sweet spot is obviously working with families. And because it's a mortgage, we find that over time, the younger the children, and it's about breaking the cycle is the best. With 90 units, we would not foresee that all of them would need to be Habitat homes. We would like to see a development like that. I believe in complete communities and be something like a partnership. So is a third a partnership with the seniors provider that could provide that to them? Is a third maybe missing middle, right? A little bit higher than the Habitat homes so that you can make that happen. But we would be looking to do it in partnership with other community providers such as Dufferin County in this community.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So one of the things you mentioned is that you wanted to enter into an MOU. And part of that, I would assume, is that you wanted to have discussions as far as us selling the land to you for $1, gifting the land, holding a mortgage, etc. So you're looking for an MOU. I'm very much in support of your proposal for affordable housing. I think the location is great. I'm worried about the land itself. So I wonder if our general manager could maybe give us an update on any environmental studies that have happened and where we are. What's the status on that?
Mr. Koslek.
Through your worship. The property, the former railway property, was impacted by railway operations. We've done some sampling in the area and it has hydrocarbon and other contaminants on the property. We're doing some additional sampling the last couple of weeks, the groundwater. We're looking at bringing a report to council in about 8 weeks with an update on it. So we'll have more information at that time. But there would be cleanup that would be required before the property is used for other purposes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yeah. So again, I'm very in support of an MOU, but I'm wondering if we might be jumping a little bit ahead of ourselves if we do that tonight. I would kind of like to wait until we see the outcome of this, and then perhaps that's a discussion that we could direct staff to work with you once we have all of those results back.
That would have been my comment as well, Councillor Sherwood. I think we're a bit preliminary for an MOU at this stage, but if there's a report coming back to council in 8 weeks' time or so, following that, we can give direction to staff at that point. If it's going to be a feasible land to use, at that point, council can make the decision to direct staff towards an MOU. CAO Smith, I'm looking to you for yes, agreement. Perfect. Was there any additional questions? Okay. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your presentation and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next, I will welcome some of our town staff, Katrina Lemire, Economic Development and Culture Manager, and Vicki Sword, who is our Tourism and Culture Officer. They're going to present our tourism strategy and action plan update.
The space bar.
just getting your presentation shared.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. It is an absolute honor to be here tonight to give you an update and progress report on the Tourism Strategy and Action Plan. The Tourism Strategy and Action Plan was launched in January of 2021. So believe it or not, we are already 3 years into our 5-year plan. When developing the Strategy and Action Plan, we first looked at what the key tourism drivers are for Orangeville. And then we layered on top of that 4 strategic priorities, which I'll take you through in a bit more detail as we go through this presentation. But those strategic priorities were developed through consultation and through research as part of this project. And then from there came 20 recommendations and 70 actions. This slide gives you an overview of some of our key milestones. The first of which, again, was January of 2021 when we launched the Tourism Strategy and Action Plan. It's important to note that timeline because this is right on the heels of the pandemic. So we were launching a new Tourism Strategy and Action Plan in a time of great uncertainty. And so this plan in itself has a lot of foundational work with the hope that we would be coming out of the pandemic as a strong town and with strong businesses. In March of 2021, we created the position of Tourism and Culture Officer. This role is put in place to implement the Tourism Strategy and Action Plan. And in February of 2022, we launched the Love Orangeville Tourism brand. Strategic priority number 1 is administration and operation. And this is a really foundational pillar where we ensure that we have resources in place to accomplish all the actions in the strategy and action plan. So this is where we hired the Tourism and Culture Officer, and we made sure that our local partners and businesses were informed, excited, and on board with the strategy and action plan. Strategic priority number 2 is branding and promotions. This, in a nutshell, is the Love Orangeville Tourism brand. And making sure that as we develop our annual marketing plans, as we develop our collaterals and have additional materials such as videos, photographies, and content, that we're including the Love Orangeville brand. It is also the loveorangeville.ca website. So this is a key area that we always direct people to for the latest and greatest information on tourism in Orangeville. Strategic priority number 3 is tourism assets and experience development. So this is making sure that we have the tourism assets available for visitors to enjoy when they come to our community, and that we're packaging those assets in a way that's exciting and fresh for those visitors. So in this category, I'd like to just highlight that we manage the public art collections. So this is both managing and growing our public art collection in town. And as far as the packaging of tourism assets and experiences, we create itineraries, trails, tours, family-friendly items like our bingo cards and our scavenger hunts. And it's all just different ways of packaging our tourism assets to keep things exciting for visitors. Strategic priority number 4 is infrastructure and investments. And you'll see that this is the area where we still have some work to be done. And it's because infrastructure projects are long-term big projects. So as you can imagine, that's a key reason here. But so far to date, we've updated our wayfinding signage and installed the digital sign that's in front of the Visitor Information Center, very popular sign in town. The town has also had investments in beautification, accessibility, and visitor-friendly infrastructure in our downtown through the Broadway Bricks program and through the CIP. So this slide shows us some of the results to date. And you'll see that all of our results always use a baseline of 2022. And that's because 2022 is our first full year out of the pandemic and our first year with our Love Orangeville tourism brand. So in this particular slide, we're comparing 2023 to 2022. And you'll see that total visits to our town, and this is all visits to our downtown area, is where we have our numbers from. Total visits are up by 20%. And this, when I say total visits, this means local residents, which is 40 kilometers away and closer, as well as tourists who are greater than 40 kilometers away. If we look strictly at tourists, we see that visits are up by 31% year over year, and that tourist spend is up by 35% year over year. This next slide is our communication stats. And these are the tools that we use to get our message out there to residents and to tourists. The first of which is our loveorangeville.ca website. And you can see that we're gaining a lot of traction there. This is a source of great pride for us. The site is getting a lot of people viewing it each month. Our newsletter is also gaining recipients, and we have a really high open rate for that. As for social media, you can see that we're gaining, like by percentage, we're gaining a lot in social media, but we still have a lot of ground to cover there. We'd like to increase those numbers quite significantly, and so that's an effort that we're making over this next year as well. So where do we see ourselves going in 2024? We're going to continue to build on the tourism strategy and action plan, as well as working through our annual marketing plan. We're going to be packaging our tourism assets in new and exciting ways, focusing on outdoor spaces as a tourism driver, supporting our tourism-related businesses as well as our local partners. And as always, looking for ways that we can measure the things that we do so we know what's successful and what's working in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to start off by saying that the Love Orangeville brand is just so awesome. And every time that I continue to see stuff on social media, it's just so well done. So right on point with what we want to promote. And it really is showing in your numbers. Second to that, I just wanted to comment on the love sign. I spend a fair bit of time in CAO Smith's office. And every time we're in a meeting, we noted the number of people that were stopping to take a photo in front of that sign. And you could tell that a lot of them were visitors to the community. Some were residents as well with their kids, and over March break especially, it was well loved by the kids and families in the community. So well done on that campaign. I'd like to open it to the floor. Councillor Andrews.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And as someone that's involved with the economic development portfolio, again, I applaud everything that you're doing here. And again, both Vicky and Katrina, thank you for what you do in making our town such a very special place to others that may not know about what our town is all about. I also echo the mayor's point regarding the Love Orangeville sign. And I think when we take a look at the data that you have 2022 to 2023, I think it's just going to go through the roof in 2024, the utilization of social media. But on that point about tourism, I'm wondering, a very short period of time, 30 seconds or less, how do you end up retrieving that information? How do you know how many people are coming into our town?
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews, we have a few ways. So we purchase data from Central Counties Tourism, and that's geofence data. So they're taking location data samples for those people visiting our downtown area. It's about a 4 million square foot area. And so we're getting an idea of who's visiting from that data. That data does not include the streets. So these are people who actually stop and are walking around through our downtown. So we have a pretty good feel for who those people are and how many of them there are. Some of the other data that you saw on the slide, we use those visitor stats, and we use the TREE model, which is a modeling software. When you know how many visitors are coming to your area, it helps you to calculate a spend. So that's where we get that spend from. So it's a model. that we use.
Thank you, Vicki. One other question, Your Worship. Other areas, of course, of interest for community is sports tourism, and how does that align into some of this strategy?
Through your worship to Councillor Andrews. So sports tourism is very important for our community. We have been challenged because of our availability of accommodation. So that has been a struggle for us. We can invite people to, take part in sports activities in our community, but sometimes we've been hearing, they head back to Brampton to stay. So once we get a better, so accommodation is a big part, and developing accommodation is a big part of our tourism strategy and promoting that. That being said, we can't wait for that. So we are obviously, Vicki works very closely with our recreation team. Whenever there's a tournament in town, we're certainly giving them our tourism collateral. We're advising them to head to our visitor information center, putting these itineraries and tours together to get them out of the rec centers into our downtown, using our outdoor spaces, visiting our businesses. So we're working basically with our colleagues within the town to understand when those opportunities are available and to give those resources to the right people.
Thank you.
Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, ladies, very much for all the work that you do. I just wanted to circle back to the communication engagement part. You mentioned a newsletter. How is that circulated? Is that through the town page, or is it a handout that you have at the tourism? I'm just trying to understand what this newsletter is, how you're circulating, and how often it's being published.
It's a monthly e-newsletter. So we use Constant Contact, and it goes out to our set list of recipients each month that have signed up for our arts and culture newsletter.
Is there any other questions or comments from members of council? Okay, thank you very much for the update. Great to hear from you, and we'll see you back soon, I'm sure. Up next, I would invite up Liz Corriveau from 187 Credit Creek Boulevard. Thank you, Liz. The floor is yours.
My name is Liz Corriveau, and I live at 187 Credit Creek Boulevard in Orangeville. Hello, Mayor Post and Council. During the first reading of the noise bylaw, I spoke about my experiences with noise in my neighborhood. I have read through the updated noise bylaw, and I have a few questions and require some clarifications around the penalties for those who have not abided by the noise bylaw. From what I understand, the noise reporting package or log is important if the issue goes to court. I'm wondering what typically would require the matter to go to court. Is this something that would happen frequently with every complaint? In your update, it mentions an investigation and charges. Can you clarify how this is different from the fines? In regards to fines, I have several questions. Under the previous noise bylaw, I submitted paperwork after 5 separate days of enduring blasting music for several hours each day in the summer of 2023. On my log, I included the 26 times from 2021. I was told that the 5 incidents were not enough offenses for fines to be issued, and that the 26 incidents from 2021 were too long ago. I only wish to show a pattern of behavior by including the 2021 incidents. The reason why I'm asking about the fine schedule is that I don't wish to sit and listen to music blasting for sometimes up to 12 hours a day for a certain amount of days in order for fines to be issued. At what point can a fine be issued? How many times do they need to offend for a fine to be issued? Can it be just once? I understand that the staff will be submitting set fines to the Regional Senior Justice for approval. Will the public get an opportunity to see the set fines and the fine schedule before the 3rd reading? I would also like to know what occurs if the music is turned off by the time the officer gets there. As we know, officers are busy and it may take some time. If I record it on my phone, is that enough for a fine to be issued? My last question is regarding the 7 a.m. start time for lawn equipment on Saturdays. The proposed Saturday start time at the February 12th meeting was 9 a.m. It was suggested that at the last meeting by a local lawn care company owner of having 2 separate timeframes for residential and for commercial, so that lawn care companies can begin at 7 a.m. on commercial properties and 9 a.m. on residential properties. Councillor Sherwood had even mentioned a commercial residential rationale during the last meeting. According to the Orangeville Banner in 2013, there were many complaints to the bylaw from a West End Orangeville neighborhood about a resident mowing their grass at 7 a.m. This resident was charged for the early hour mowing. If we set a 7 a.m. time on Saturday and Sundays, we are going to have this issue again in those neighborhoods that dealt with this over 10 years ago. Therefore, I'm wondering why this has changed to 7 a.m. when it was suggested otherwise at the February 12th meeting.
Okay. Who wants to take that one? Okay. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So I can speak to a couple of these issues specifically. So a lot of times a bylaw enforcement officer has a couple of different options when they're going out to a property. One of them is the a ticket, so the 200 ticket under the short form wording, and that is basically used as a deterrent to keep things from happening. The other option that's available is to actually place an order or file a charge, and that's what would go to court. If it gets to that point, that log that's being kept is what's important. So the judge is going to have to see that repeated behavior in order for that charge to stick and for the municipality not to have gone down a road for no reason with there's not enough information. I can't speak to a lot of the items that you're talking about in relation to the bylaw enforcement because generally our bylaw enforcement officers are empowered to make decisions based on the test of reasonableness, and that's for them to decide based on the issue that's before them. So the generality of some of the items that you've talked about, really, I can't give an indication of that. Every situation is different, and therefore we can't give a whole lot of information about specific information without having those specifics.
Okay, and will we be able to see a set fine schedule before the third reading?
So we're anticipating a first, second, and third reading on the as per the agenda today, would happen today. The set fine schedule is $200 across the board for everything that constitutes an offense that's listed directly in the bylaw. So a lot of times you won't see a set fine schedule because it's just taking the wording of the bylaw, putting that amount into it, saying the $200. We would include a set fine schedule if there was different amounts for different infractions, but it's $200 across the board for every infraction included in the bylaw.
And can you talk about the 7 a.m. start for lawn equipment?
So the 7 a.m. start for lawn equipment was, I believe, included for Monday to Friday, and now it's showing Monday to Saturday, but the statutory Sundays and statutory holidays is listed at 9 a.m. So I'm sorry, what was the question with that?
So, it was talked about at the last meeting about having a 9 a.m. start on Saturdays for lawn equipment. I didn't know why the switch all of a sudden when people seem to be in favor of that.
There was a couple of different discussions related to that. Some of it was 7 a.m. There was somebody said that they would look for 8 a.m. would also be amicable. So because there was conflicting information, our staff put that in there. Council all has the ability to make amendments as they see fit at this juncture. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Clerk, for answering all of those. Next up, we will invite Bob Sinclair from Fieldgate Drive to talk about the noise bylaw as well.
Hi, Bob Sinclair, 37 Fieldgate Drive, Orangeville. I sent in a letter. I'd prefer not to reread it in the interest of saving time.
It's actually on the council agenda.
It's on the council agenda?
Yep.
Okay. It just basically comes down to the start times. Just trying to beat the heat, and it would be nice, like I'm just thinking Riddell Road, Napa, Ideal Supply, there's no houses around that area, and they're mostly closed on Sundays, and we're just trying to cut the grass on commercial properties before Monday so they look good for the rest of the week. And my letter just basically comes down to start times, especially when it's hot out.
I think that one was already addressed, but if you have anything else to add, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, so the letter, I have taken time to look at it, and the letter did say a weekend. So Saturday is a 7 a.m. start, is included in the bylaw currently. So it's really only Sunday, because you did indicate in your letter that the 9 a.m. start you'd be okay with for statutory holidays. So it would only be Sundays that the 9 o'clock start would be in effect. The other thing I do want to say is our bylaws are complaint-based. If you're in a commercial area where there's nobody working on those commercial areas, chances are you're not going to get a complaint. So that's something to consider as well. The other thing, like our GM, our general manager had mentioned earlier, is the first few months of a new bylaw being implemented, we're really looking at education. We're looking about what's working and what's not. And that is the time where additional amendments could be made throughout that period of time. So if it's not working or we're getting concerns after that time, then we would definitely take a second look at it at that time.
That was it.
Does that cover it for you then?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Sinclair.
you for taking my letter so late. So thank
No
you.
problem. No problem. Do you have a question? Yeah, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Through your worship to the clerk, just to understand that a little bit. So as you read through the document, there's just one line I just want to make sure we're all clear on. So everything that was just discussed about timeframes makes sense to me. But then it says on the bottom right, staff do not recommend specific timeframes for commercial zones at this time. So just as clarification, if they're in a commercial zone, which he was describing, he could be there at 6 a.m.
Clerk?
No, through you, Madam Chair. What I was saying is that if you're in a commercial zone and there's no residences around there, chances are you're not going to get a complaint because our noise bylaw is a complaints-based system. I'm not saying that it's permitted. It would be a violation of the noise bylaw if you were there on Sunday morning between 7 and 9, but that if there's nobody to complain, then there wouldn't be a violation happening or being brought forward to the town to enforce.
Deputy Mayor?
But if I may, doesn't it say that commercial is no? I'm reading.
No, sorry, through you, Mayor. It's saying that we don't want to separate different times for different zones. So we don't want to say commercial zones are these times, residential zones are these times, industrial zones are these times. We don't want to put that in the bylaw.
So to some, if it's a Sunday, you're allowed to be there at 9 a.m. But the reality is, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, you can be there at 6 a.m. if you'd like, because you're in a commercial area, right? You're asking people to exercise judgment. Is what you're.
Yes, there's a level of reasonableness when you look at any of bylaws, and our officers are empowered to use their judgment of reasonableness when enforcing.
And the residential area would be entirely different.
There's a bigger chance of complaints happening in the residential area. Yes.
And you should be respectful.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. McSweeney. I think we will work on pulling up your slide deck now.
So I don't know, I'm not going to be a slave to this slide deck. Ian McSweeney, 7 Zina Street. I am the vice chair of the current Police Services Board up until April 1st, when I will be vice chair of the new Orangeville OPP Detachment Board. And that is really the subject that I want to update you on today. You'll recall that the last time I was here, we were just finishing up, the board was just finishing up its governance reform project with respect to compliance with the board governance requirements of the Police Services Act. And I told you at that time that having completed that, I think in November, we would be coming back and giving you an update on phase 2 of that project, which is updating all of the governance stuff that we produced, the materials that we produced, in order to comply with the new legislation, the Community Safety and Policing Act, which is effective April 1st. And so that's really what I'm going to do tonight. And I've given you a deck. You're welcome to have a look at it. And I'm happy to answer questions that you have about any aspect of this. We're going to be talking about it tomorrow at the Police Service Board meeting. But just to let you know, the deadline is April 1st. And the good news is that Orangeville is going to be compliant as of April 1st. And most communities in Ontario will not be able to say that. I think we've done a lot of hard work over the last, I guess, 18 months or so to make sure that phase 1 was completed and that phase 2 would be in shape to be completed by the April 1st deadline. And all that hard work has paid off. I think I was just at the OAPSB summit meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was clear to me that nobody is as far advanced as we are in connection with being compliant with this new legislation. And, you know, make no mistake, compliance is important for a number of reasons. And it's not like the government is going to be breathing down the necks of municipalities as after April 1st to make sure that compliance is achieved. But there are a number of things in the new legislation, like mandatory training for all police service board members, and the consequence by April 1st, and the consequence of not going through that training program is that you are relieved of any authority of acting as a member of a police service board. So your board shuts down. Now, I've also been on the committee that's been scrambling around trying to produce these training modules, and been warning for months and months and months that we're not going to be ready. The solution the government has come up with, which we should be receiving formally shortly, is that there's going to be an abridged training module. It's not going to take 3 hours to complete. I'm going to actually go through it next week when it becomes available. And it will be abridged in the sense that it's going to be enough that if you take it, you're compliant. And it allows the government to hold on to this April 1st deadline that they're holding on with considerable vigor, so that they don't let that go. They don't have to exercise forbearance. They don't have to forgive or accept any municipality out of compliance. And boards will continue to operate. There are a couple of things, and I invite you, and I don't think we need to share it, but I've got a series of next steps in slides 13 and 14 of the presentation. And I think, you know, it may be fairly interesting to have a quick look at that. It largely says that we're going to be compliant, but there's still work to be done. We've got a number of things that have to be completed over the next couple of weeks prior to April 1st. And I am 100% confident that we're going to get there through our regular meeting, us being the board, the regular meeting that we're having tomorrow. And we'll hold one or more special meetings prior to April 1st if we need to get approval of the draft guts of our new governance framework. We'll then spend the balance of time after April 1st to April 30th finalizing all the details of those draft working documents. Now, I say they're working documents because they're working documents in the sense that they're in place on April 1st, so we are compliant, but they're going to need some fine tuning between now and the 30th, and we will get that done. We've already got things in place. One of the things we have to do is we have to sit down with the detachment commander and go through our local policies. The new legislation specifically provides that boards may have policies in certain areas. We already have 20 policies. Some of them are being revised. Some of them are being eliminated, and there's some new ones we're adding. But the legislation says that they have to be introduced in consultation with the detachment commander. So that's what we're going to do. So all of that will be in place by April 30th. And I'm happy to come back to council, but the deputy mayor and the mayor are on the police service board. They are well equipped to keep you updated. I'm happy to come back though and give you further updates as things move along. One of the things, and this is the last point I'll make, one of the things that we're very mindful of, two things. The first thing that we're very mindful of is keeping council informed about what we're doing. The subset of that is keeping the community informed about what we're doing through our community awareness program, and we've been rolling that out, and it's getting great uptake. We've contacted various community partners and invited them, told them what we're all about, invited them to attend our police service board's meeting to reciprocate, and they are starting to do that. But we also need to keep council advised. in connection with some of the statistics and other police matters that come to us at our meetings. And we're going to be doing that on an ongoing basis. We have been doing it through the deputy mayor and the mayor. The final thing that I wanted to mention and just raise for you, David, is I've recently asked Dwayne Sprague, our ministry advisor, this question: what happened to our October 1st, 2020 agreement with the OPP? I meant, before coming tonight, I meant to actually dig that agreement out and look at it to see what it says. But the response I got back was it's void as of April 1st. Because it's superseded by Section 11, Section 60, and Section 67 of the new CSPA. So I'm happy to talk to you about this online. Dwayne went away and thought about it for a couple of days and came back. So it's obviously the view of the ministry. I don't know what that means in terms, or whether we even agree with it for that matter. I don't know what that means in terms of our agreement with the OPP and and all of the things that are in that agreement going forward. So maybe have a look at it, and then I'm happy to sit down and talk to you about what, if anything, we do as follow up.
Thank you so much, Mr. McSweeney. Was there questions from members of council? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. So I see that there's a 15-page presentation that we've had absolutely zero time to review. I'm asking that we either take the time now to review that and have that presented, or ask Mr. McSweeney to come back and do that. I think it's not fair for us to take it back and read it on our own time. I think we need to be fully transparent to the public to see this as well. But again, I have not had any time to review this at all. You're not presenting it to us. I would like to see that presented and discussed. So can we either do it now or have him come back?
CAO Smith, do you have a comment?
I would just comment that, certainly the councillor's direction could be considered by council. Many times we do get a presentation and it's not gone through slide by slide. We certainly make sure it wasn't in the agenda, so we could certainly make sure it's in the minutes so members of the public could see it. And if councillors want to look through it and direct specific questions, that's an option as well. Another option would be as the councillor has suggested.
Thank you. Was there additional questions, thoughts from members of council on Councillor Sherwood's proposal? Did anybody want to see that now? A lot of it is updated information from the last time that he was here, just to show which ones have changed. I don't know if you had a chance to look through it at all, but a lot of it is kind of self-explanatory from the last presentation and is more updates and next steps. So.
Yeah, my intention was not to jam council, certainly. My intention was to try to provide a general update with some takeaway points that you could look at. And as I said, I'm happy to take you through it now or answer questions later.
Councillor Sherwood?
So Your Worship, if we could make sure that this becomes part of the public records and in the minutes that the public can review this as well, then I'm okay with reviewing it on our own time then.
Okay.
And I did, just on a public transparency point, I should say that we intend to publish not this presentation per se, but we're going to publish all of our governance material and all of our policies and bylaws, obviously on our website. I'm making a presentation to Zone 3 on March 21st because Zone 3 and a lot of the boards in Zone 3 are struggling with what to do because they are a 10th of the way along compared to Orangeville. So you should feel I know this doesn't really address your question, Councillor, but we should feel very, very comfortable that we are in a good place as far as bringing into place our OPP Detachment Board as of April 1st.
Just quickly, I want to thank you personally because I know that you have put a lot of work into this, and I very much appreciate that.
Our board is very much where it is today because of the hard work of Mr. McSweeney and of Ms. Archer, who have together done most of this governance work that myself and the other members just kind of approve because the bulk of the work has already been done. We're very lucky to have them as part of this board.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. So who would we bring our questions to, Mr. McSweeney, when time comes? Just email them or
through Deputy Mayor Taylor as the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And I echo again the comment from Councillor Sherwood. We haven't really had the opportunity to digest this, but at the same time, I did do a quick glance, and I was very impressed to see two policy changes, one of which is policy V and W. Can you quickly explain a little bit about that, if you don't mind? One is on the community grants and the safety program, and the other is the domestic violence and partner violence issue. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
no,
we have a minute or two to just get
Knows them
clarification.
inside and out, I'm sure.
Good, I'm glad you do.
Mr. McSweeney.
I do. Yeah, so those, the intimate partner violence and gender-based violence policy, when council passed the resolution and the board passed a similar resolution, we thought it's a great idea while we're at it to enshrine that as a policy of the board. And I have heard talk that some of the other boards are thinking about doing the same thing, but once again, largely through this council's foresight and passing that resolution early, we were able to do so quick off the mark and incorporate it in our new governance materials. So that's the short answer for that. The other question with respect to the grants, I mean, Mary Lou Archer, we are so fortunate to have her as part of our police governance organization. And we say it to each other all the time, but she knows the grant process inside out. Every single community in Ontario would love to have a Mary Lou Archer, because a lot of the grant money is there for the grabbing if you can grab it. And what Mary Lou has done over the past, and we watched this happen, what she's done over the past couple of years is she's developed an expertise in identifying grant money and applying for it and getting it. And so the reason we prepared this policy is we didn't want to lose that institutional memory. And people aren't around forever. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to pass on, as part of our governance framework, pass on Mary Lou's expertise as part of the framework that we write down and then we pass on to future generations of boards.
And just for, and through your worship, for the sake of, I guess, clarification for the community and those who may be watching and also in the gallery and of course, future digestion of this, can you give an example of what that community grant program would be? One idea.
Well, now you're putting me on the spot.
I can give one.
Yeah.
The ride
The RIDE program is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be an example of one, and some of the MCERT money is the other.
And some of our mobile crisis unit response teams that a lot of other communities are putting in place, but they all function solely because grant money comes through, and we have funds in order to put those programs out in the community.
And again, to publicly declare again, thank you for your leadership and your expertise, and also to Ms. Archer as well.
Yes, well, I really do appreciate, but the board operates as a whole, so your accolades go to the board as a whole, really.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Taylor?
I just wanted to make a couple comments if I could. So one is, the MCRT that you just mentioned, Mary Lou, with the help of the board, just got $166,000. Right. So that's money that's given to our community to be able to run these programs. And the interesting piece is Mary Lou does all of the intellectual horsepower work to try and figure out how to get the grant. But then we get permission to get the grant. We get confirmation we're going to get the grant, but sometimes we don't actually get the money. So then you have to follow up and ensure that you're getting the money, and you need to get the money before a certain date and ensure that money is spent. Otherwise, you lose the money. And it's not because we're not spending the money just to spend the money. It's all earmarked and done. It's just the follow-up that's required that she does for us is absolutely phenomenal. And then the other point I wanted to make was just to Councillor Sherwood. So you're absolutely right. I mean, the report came late, but the reality is the board has been sort of writing the lyrics while we're singing the song. And I think you can see that in the trepidation that Mr. McSweeney has when he's trying to explain how this has gone. The province is making changes to the legislation, and they have not fully informed the boards of what this is. So the purpose of tonight, I think if you were to take one thing away is that the Police Services Board is trying to fulfill a commitment that was made to council, and that is that we would come back and present. So thank you, Mr. McSweeney, for doing this, for being here. And I think it's really important that the public hears what's going on and also that council has an understanding of it. But to kind of quote you, there was no intent to jam with it's an intent to hug, right? And make sure everybody understands what we're doing.
And the good news is, and I know you know this, is that we get 2 new community appointees on the OPP Detachment Board. Once we get the regulation that the government's been promising that we made comments on through the consultation process, once that regulation comes out, hopefully before April 1st, we'll know a bit more officially about the constitution of the OPP Detachment Board. Right now, we're operating on 2 appendices that were attached to a consultation note in the Ontario Regulatory Services webpage. So.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I just wanted to be clear that Mr. McSweeney said he would do this in 4 minutes. You miserably failed at that, but you failed at it because you got engagement and questions.
I could have said that.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. And
would have been worse if I had gone through the deck.
Thank you very much, Mr. McSweeney, for being here, and we'll see you back soon.
I just want to say one more thing, Councillor, that when you go through the deck, you'll notice something called a local board issue that will probably start you to vibrate. And because it did with me, and it's an outstanding issue, and it's creating a lot of tension between not here because you guys operate great, a lot of tension between municipalities and their detachment boards, and it's the government failing when it was producing companion amendments to the new legislation, to the Municipal Act, the Municipal Affairs Act, the Municipal Elections Act, that used to refer to police services boards. Because OPP detachment boards are no longer included in that definition, there's an argument that OPP detachment boards are local boards. And if you look at the Municipal Act, municipalities get to make bylaws that control local boards. And it was never the intention that municipalities can make bylaws to control police services boards. That was clear from the old legislation. But putting police service board, which does not include OPP detachments, in that definition completely begs the question. So municipalities are actually fighting about this with their boards over whether or not they can, in a sense, control their boards by bylaw. It won't happen here.
No, we're good.
It won't happen here.
Thank you very much for being here, Mr. McSweeney, and we will see you back soon, I'm sure. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into the consent agenda. The following items have been compiled under the consent agenda to facilitate a single vote for council consideration. Council may remove any item from the consent agenda for individual consideration. So I will ask for that now, if there's any. Councillor Andrews.
Yes, Your Worship, I have 2. They would be 13.1.2 and 13.1.3.
Okay. Was there any additional items from members of council? 2 and 3, 13.1.2 and 13.1.3. That covers yours. Any additionals? Okay. All right. So the recommendation then is that all consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes, with the exception of 13.1.2 and 13.1.3, be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items removed for those considerations. Can I have a motion for that, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will move then into 13.1.2, which is the additional funding required for Alder Recreation Centre. The recommendation in the report is that report CMS 2024-005, additional funding required, Alder Street Recreation Centre, be received, and that council authorize the additional funds from the General Capital Reserve in the amount of $175,000. Can I have a motion to put that on the floor for discussion? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Andrews, I will start with you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I'm presuming this would go to Ms. Savage as for the question. Again, I thank you for the detailed report. It does give us an outline of why this is here. We know about the unfortunate circumstance that happened last, late summer. And again, with our global warming situation we seem to have apparent, I think that this is a situation, if we don't do this, we're going to have a situation that you've highlighted in the report could be even lengthier. And, we don't want to impede the situation with our very valuable hockey and utilization of the ice rink itself. Where I'm going with this is, in fact, I'm going to kind of, if you don't mind, if I'm just going to take 30 seconds to go in the weeds, and this is more for the general public. I'll give you an example. My wife has an 11-year-old car. We take it to the mechanic. The mechanic says, in general terms, this is what needs to be done. And then when they start, taking the car apart, they realize, there's some more items for it to continue to be on the road that you're going to have to pay a little bit more. I think what we have here is an example where, we see what the cost is for this particular condenser. Is there a potential of additional funds that could be required for this particular project?
Ms. Savage.
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Andrews. At this point, as long as we put a contingency fund, if we're building in some contingency, then that should be able to cover any of the other pieces that might come up that we're unaware of. When we originally received the quote, as it mentions in the report, that we were meeting budget deadlines. That went into the 2024 capital budget request. That quote was, in order to meet budget deadlines, was in August of last year. Since then, we've had some time lapse, a new budget has come in. We're now onto the second layer, I guess, of quotes. We realize we have to go in through a wall, and I have answers about the wall as well. Mr. Smith is here. And we know that we have to do some adjustments to be able to install the unit properly. We're also factoring in that instead of having to remove the wall in 20 years when the condenser is at the end of its lifespan, we don't have to go and wreck the wall again. We'll put on replacement panels. You simply pop off the panels, pull out the condenser. So we're trying to put pieces in place that will prevent any further structural changes to that building in the future when this happens at the end of the unit's lifespan.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Prendergast, and then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. One question about the wall. I know that we will be renovating the Alder space to create the maker space. I just wanted to ensure that we won't be doubling our efforts with the removal of the wall and perhaps making renovations for the maker space, and that those two pieces of work are done in a coordinated manner, so that's not being duplicated. And just for the public, this is additional funds for Alder, but not related to the pool. So I think that's an important distinction. This is for the ice rink. This has nothing to do with the pool. Okay.
Ms. Savage.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor Prendergast. The renovations that are happening at the makerspace are different types of renovations and a different wall. I did mention earlier that we think that we may have to close the library. Facility manager has said we're going to best effort to corner off the areas and keep the library open. So that won't impact patrons. But if there is an opportunity to double up our efforts and do the renovations at the same time so that the dust is only flying once, then we definitely will do that.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, through your worship. Do you have an approximate time when this would start? I guess not if we don't have a contractor yet.
Ms. Savage.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor Stevens. If we have council approval this evening, I will be informing facility staff. They are going to send an email right away. It will start tomorrow morning. We need to be able to we have a company. They need to say, yes, go ahead, build the unit, send the unit to us. We're hoping to have it wrapped up by mid to late August, so it does not interfere with hockey season.
And then, as I'm reading, so this will make summer ice happen in the future?
Ms. Savage.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor Stevens, I can't guarantee anything, but it does, with the new technology, with the new condenser, it does allow us to pilot summer ice on one rink. We are hopeful, and we've been working with the technicians and the experts. They also agree that summer ice will probably be possible on one ice pad. And then from there, we can possibly move to two.
Thank you.
Was there any other questions from members of council? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Item 13.1.3 is the noise bylaw, CPS 2024-11. The recommendation is that report CPS 2024-11 noise bylaw be received and that council pass a bylaw to prohibit and regulate noise within the town and repeal bylaw 12.96. Can I have a motion to put this on the floor, please? Councillor Pendergast and Councillor Andrews. Councillor Andrews, I'll start with you.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the general public who has provided input. I also want to thank staff who had provided some clarity here on a variety of elements of this. The one question is the punitive piece. And I know that, this is, I think, one piece that we need to have some teeth. And I don't know if there's any way that can be as part of this process of looking at it once it is instituted, as had been highlighted, the education will enable us to have, a relook at this. I seriously think an escalated punitive process needs to be implemented to hopefully stop some people from doing what they've been doing, and they just, brush it off. And I just wanted to express that for consideration.
Is there any member of staff who wanted to touch on that? Madam Clerk?
I can speak very limited on this. Noise bylaws generally it's not one of our highest complaints that we receive. I know there are some people that have quite a few of them, and my heart goes out to them, it really does, but it's not a really high ticket item for bylaw enforcement as it currently is. But as soon as this bylaw gets implemented, we'll start tracking our KPIs related to the enforcement and the complaints that are being received, and then take a look at it and see if there's any amendments that we should bring back to council for further consideration.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you. I had a question regarding what Mr. St. Clair brought up. I think if we have a resident who wants to follow our bylaws, it's remiss to suggest that it's complaint driven. And we should maybe discover if it's possible to have a commercial bylaw for start times versus residential. Here we have someone who wants to abide by the laws that the town is setting, our bylaws. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to recommend that he waits for someone to complain. So I took an issue with that, and I would hope that we could investigate a way to let this business owner follow the laws of our town while also conducting his business.
Madam Clerk, and Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens.
Yes, why, thank you. I did recognize that Saturday was one of the days that he had mentioned in his letter that was not open to debate. And Sundays was the other one. And he was asking for some leniency on specific things due to extenuating circumstances, which is not unlike if somebody's parked in a 2-hour parking and something happens, extenuating circumstances happen, it happens. Those kinds of things is what it was looked at. Council definitely has the opportunity, if they wish to address it, they can do so at this point or at the point when we're passing the bylaw and amend those time zones. And that is how that would happen now, or we can look at it again when we start looking at the KPIs related to this bylaw once it's implemented and see if there is any issues that come forward in relation to it.
T.O. Smith?
Yeah, I'll just comment as well as bylaws are very difficult to enforce. Especially things like noise. It's transitory, typically. It's a judgment. We don't have meters that we go around, and the wind can affect noise and a number of different factors. So we try and make them as simple and as straightforward as possible. The challenge, because we talked about this, I've thought about this with the commercial areas, is that's a geographical area, and you could discern that and you could teach people. But I think the challenge comes is when we have a commercial business offering services in a residential area, or there's a commercial business in a residential area. So now you're saying to your grass crew, unclear messaging. So it's okay to cut our lawn, but not their lawn. We're a commercial business. So my point is it gets very complicated to educate people on. If you have one rule that's consistent, then it's much easier to enforce and educate people. So I just share that perspective. My head is going to, okay, I'm a contractor, landscape contractor in a commercial area, and I'm cutting the the doctor's office or the, we can all think of 10 businesses. Oh, but that nursery school is in a residential area. I can't go cut their grass. So it just complicates things.
I agree that it becomes a little complicated. And I think the way that it's been addressed in the bylaw right now makes a lot of sense because provisions were made for one of the day and left later for the other day. And I think that's a good balance for now. As mentioned by the clerk earlier too, though, we can revisit this if it does become a problem later. We can always make a housekeeping amendment to the bylaw. Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Stevens.
Yes, Your Worship. Just a comment, I still stand by my original comment back when we discussed it previously on wanting a commercial time frame compared to residential. I appreciate what staff is saying. We have a zoning bylaw that provides zoning, whether it is a property is in a C5 or an R1, R2. So we have that zoning bylaw, and I know you don't want to necessarily have a bylaw officer driving around going, okay, are you falling under commercial or not, but I still stand beside the commercial, which is what I had commented on last time. So I don't know if I'm going to be supporting this evening. I'm still pondering.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Stevens?
I agree with both my fellow councillors on that point, and I don't know if I could pass it right now either. So.
Okay, additional comments, Deputy Mayor?
My comments, Mr. Smith, I listened to your commentary and I think, well, that makes sense to me. Like, this is not an easy thing to implement, right? It's difficult. It requires a lot of judgment and we put a lot of onus on our bylaw officers and quite candidly the OPP as they have to enforce these things. But what I'd love to do somehow with this is be more draconian in the way that we deal with it. Like if we're sending someone, I think that we should action it and find them. And I just am curious if $200 is enough. Like, I think it should be something that makes people really pay attention. Like I would suggest $500. And why I would say that is that would hurt me. $200, I'm not happy for sure. But like, I just like to see something happen that forces people to be respectful, because there's people in our community that don't understand that. And I don't know if there's a way to get at this late date, but that's what I'd like to see us do.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Additional questions or comments from members of council, or any further commentary from staff, maybe? CAO Smith?
I don't want to belabor the point, but I will. I think of the map of our community because the first time this came out, I thought, oh yeah, you draw a line in commercial areas. So, on Riddell Road, no problem. You can't do it at a certain time, but we have commercial properties all throughout our community. And to educate every grass crew on this location you can and this location you can't, and then be punitive with a $500 fine makes it very problematic.
Madam Clerk, I saw you reaching for your mic as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's nothing requiring council to pass this bylaw at this juncture. There is a noise bylaw in effect. It is outdated. It is from 1996, but there is some merit to what's included in that old one as well. This bylaw, this new one, was created by the municipal prosecutor. It was drafted by the municipal prosecutor and based on the guidance provided at the time, which is to follow best practices from neighboring municipalities. If this bylaw isn't passed, we do still have a noise bylaw that doesn't have any timelines in it at all. It is just, you cannot cause noise at any time within reason, kind of thing. So there is no pressure. There's no timelines associated with it. If council wishes to have a sober second thought at this or sit back, defer it, to have another kick at the can, direct staff to do something different, we're open to that as well.
I would leave it to council then. Yeah, Councillor Sherwood.
Your Worship, to the clerk. So re-educate me here. You've probably said this, but so at this current time, there's no logging of those complaints currently, but you are hoping to implement logging the complaints. And then I've got a question.
So as far as I'm aware, prior to Mr. Wiedekowski's tenure here with the municipality, there was no tracking of the enforcement complaints. So they kind of just did, when he started here, he kind of took a look at what was prevalent in the municipality. We are currently undertaking tracking of our bylaw complaints that are coming in to see if we can look for any trends in bylaw enforcement.
Councillor Sherwood, were you referring to logging of noise complaints specifically? Because logging of noise complaints has been in effect through
Yes.
other bylaw, but tracking of which complaints are coming towards which bylaw is what the clerk is talking about, I believe. So it depends on if you're talking about logging of noise from a resident, logging noise complaints of.
So I'm thinking more like, is it somebody calling about a 7 a.m. lawn mower being currently logged?
Now it is. It hasn't been historically.
So my hope would be that perhaps we just shelve this or table this or receive this for now and come back and see how many of those actual specific complaints get logged during the summer season and readdress it. Just something I'm thinking out loud about.
Madam Clerk?
Through you. So we would not be entertaining any complaints related to lawn mowing. The current one is, especially for a specific time, there is no time associated with it, but it also provides, there is a, remember this is a bylaw from 1996. So there's a general exemption for, if I remember correctly, general construction and maintenance. And because there's no actual definitions, which makes it hard to enforce this bylaw, there's no definitions, lawn maintenance would be classified under maintenance and that. So it wouldn't be an enforceable offense under the current bylaw.
Councillor Sherwood, I appreciate where you're coming from. My approach would be slightly different. My approach would be that we approve or move to put this bylaw into place now and ask for bylaw staff to come back with a report maybe at the end of the summer that can show some of that tracking data. And at that point, we can revisit if there's a need to make any amendments or housekeeping adjustments, if that makes sense to you, Madam Clerk.
It definitely does. And it gives our officers the opportunity to educate and see what's working and see what's not. We definitely never go forward with a brand new bylaw with a heavy hand in any instance. It's all in the original about education and seeing what's working.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you very much. You've beaten me to the punch here, but I don't want to see this fail tonight either. We've come so far. I think it's a shame, and there is pressure on us. It's March. Very soon, we're all going to open our windows, and we're going to be doing summer things. And to go forward with the old one that clearly didn't meet our needs, to go forward with a new one that maybe has some question marks. I'd rather we passed it, and then I like exactly what you just said, and that is that we'd reevaluate at the end of the summer, a report comes in the fall, and potentially we reenact for summer of 2025 and see what needs to be changed. But I will be voting in favor of this, even though I would agree there's some things that aren't quite right, but nonetheless, I don't want it to fall apart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Prendergast, and then Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So if the current fines are set at $200 and there's no provision for incremental fines for repeat offenders, is that something that if we do approve this tonight, we can track that and see if indeed there are repeat offenders that perhaps like the resident who delegated today about repeated noise concerns on her property. I feel like we need to do diligence to that. And there are certain neighborhoods which are really unduly affected by inconsiderate neighbors. And I think, as Deputy Mayor mentioned, $200 might not make the same impact that $500 would. So I'd be interested just to see if we could track those metrics and really help the residents that are really affected by poor neighbors and bad noise.
Thank you for that, Councillor Prendergast. Madam Clerk.
It's definitely something that was discussed when we were going through this. It was something that was considered in the beginning as well, about doing that elevated level of fines. First offense, $200, second offense, $300, so on and so forth. But they decided after going through all of that they were going to stick with the set fine as it was, now that we actually had we would have an enforceable bylaw, and see what happened first before we started going forward and seeing if it's something that we needed to implement.
So that will be tracked, though, and that can be part of a report coming back to council. Thank you. Councillor Andrews?
Thank you. I think it's been framed exactly how I wanted it to play out, and I appreciate Madam Clerk again for providing that clarity. Again, I will repeat that the punitive approach here is something that will wake up some of our red flags that we have in our community. People that are the frequent flyers that are causing some of the problems. They need to know that there are penalties when you continuously are doing something that you shouldn't be doing. But I look forward to an update, be that whenever it is forthcoming, and I will be endorsing this particular motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Was there any further, Councillor Stevens, then Councillor Sherwood?
Yeah, sorry, I will follow suit, and I will support this with those conditions that we can bring it back and have discussions later on.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. So will you be amending in the motion a specific time that this reports back rather than just saying report back? We all know that we have to give specifics. We want to be reported back by the fall, by the end of the year. I would like to see it written right in the motion so that I can feel better about my decision tonight.
Madam Clerk, do you have a suggestion on what that might look like? End of the year, by the end of the calendar year?
We'd like to have at least 9 months, 6 to 9 months of good, strong data through a couple of different seasons. So I would recommend that Council direct staff to report back at the end of Q4 of 2024. The end of Q4 of 2024.
Okay, so we can add an amendment to the motion then? To add that? Madam Clerk?
Yep, we would just add another clause, and that council directs staff to report back with specific metrics related to the enforcement of the noise bylaw by Q4 of 2024.
Okay, can I have a motion for that item? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Andrews? And we'll vote for that one first before the original motion. Am I right on my procedure, or is it all together as one?
So if you already moved and seconded, you would need a motion to amend the main motion and then the main motion as amended.
Okay, perfect. So we'll, on the amended motion first, all in favor? Thank you, carried unanimously. And on the original motion, all in favor? And that is also carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to now turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Taylor because I have a notice of motion that he will chair the meeting through.
Well, I was caught off guard by that. That's very exciting. So I knew that you were putting a notice of motion through. I just didn't register that I was going to chair the meeting. So excellent. So item 14, notice of motion made prior to meeting. Item 14.1, Mayor Post, carbon tax rebate. Do you want me to read this? Do you want me to hand it over to you to read?
I will read it.
Summarize it?
Yep, I can go ahead and give a bit of a summary and I'll read the motion as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council. I think you've all had a chance to look at the motion. Where this came from was actually through Mayor Creelman in Mono. He brought this to our attention. The way that the carbon tax additional rebate for rural and small municipalities is being calculated excludes both Mono and the town of Orangeville because of the type of measurement for eligibility that they're using. So I'll go ahead and read the motion, and then if anybody has questions, I can do my best to answer them. Whereas the Government of Canada offers a quarterly basic Canada carbon rebate, CCR, of $140 plus additional amounts for spouses, common law partners, and children. And whereas a rural supplement of 10% of the basic CCR, which is soon to be 20%, is available to individuals and families provided they qualify. And whereas eligibility for the rural supplement for residents of small and rural communities is arbitrarily based on whether one lives inside or outside of a census metropolitan area, CMA, and whereas the town of Orangeville, a small community, arbitrarily falls within the Toronto CMA, therefore making its residents ineligible for the small and rural supplement, and whereas CMAs were designed for purposes other than determining eligibility for government rebates, And whereas residents of Orangeville and other small communities face such things as significant carbon tax charges for commuting long distances for employment due to a lack of viable commuter transit options and competitively priced heating fuel options. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Orangeville ask the Government of Canada to change its eligibility criteria for CCR supplements to include small and rural communities such as Orangeville, Mono, and other municipalities, regardless of whether they fall within the Toronto CMA. So I would move it. I would ask for a seconder for the motion.
I have it.
You would ask for a seconder for the motion because I'm not chairing the meeting.
Controller. She's the controller. So Mayor Post has made a motion. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Prendergast. Would anyone like to speak to this motion? Any comments or questions from council? No? Seeing none?
Can I just add one more item, if I could? Chair Taylor?
I'll think about it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. With the passing of this motion, I would just also ask for your indulgence that I would write a letter to the Prime Minister asking for this, and we will, of course, forward it to our local MP, who I have already reached out to notify that I was bringing this notice of motion forward, so he's aware of the issue, but I'll make sure that he's included as well as the other Dufferin area municipalities. I just wanted to add that this isn't just a problem within Ontario. This is happening across the country. A good example that was brought to my attention is the small town of Quispamsis, New Brunswick. It's a very small rural municipality is excluded, while the city of Fredericton is included and gets the additional rebate because of where they fall within the CMA. It's very funny how it's all worked out. And within our own CMA, Georgina Island, which is a very small rural area with a significant Indigenous reservation as well, is included in the Toronto CMA and are therefore not eligible for the additional rebate. So there's just a bit of arbitrary stuff that needs to be worked on. So thank you.
Good. So we have a mover and a seconder. No one else wants to speak to this item? All in favor? Very good. So that motion passes, and I'll turn the meeting back over to Mayor Post.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Sorry for putting you on the spot for that. I thought you knew that's where we were going. Was there any notices of motion at tonight's meeting? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I don't have anything prepared, but I just wanted to make my colleagues aware in the council information package under 3.35, the town of Cobourg has put through a motion regarding the proposed amendment under the Ontario Heritage Act with respect to removing non-designated properties from the municipal heritage registries by the end of this year. Orangeville has 454 properties in the non-designated area. There is no way that my small committee would be able to go through that many properties before the end of the year in order to see who needs to be designated. So I'm going to be working with my committee along with staff to bring forward a motion at a future meeting regarding asking the province to give us an extension of time.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Councillor Sherwood. Was there any additional notices of motion at tonight's meeting? Okay. I will turn it over then to announcements. Any announcements? Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Andrews.
Just ever so quickly, Your Worship, just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is a Police Services Board. It's in this room at 5 o'clock, and you're absolutely welcome to attend. You can attend online or in this room, and it'll be more of exactly what was discussed tonight as a large portion of the agenda. So anyway, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very quickly, I want to congratulate our law enforcement and our fire services for a very successful charity hockey game that was held at Tony Rose on Saturday evening. Funds that were raised for both the Orangeville Food Bank and DCAFs. A full house with lots of energy on the ice and a lot of recipients of worthwhile hockey enjoyment, but more importantly, the two causes I think are going to benefit quite substantially. So kudos to those that were on the ice, but also those that attended the event at Tony Rose on Saturday.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that there is currently our little romantic comedy playing upstairs from March 7th to March 24th called By the Light of a Story, and there's also subscriptions available. So please support your local theater company.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Any additional items from any members of council? Okay, seeing none, we will move into bylaws. The recommendation is that all bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 17, bylaws, be read 3 times and finally passed. A bylaw to amend bylaw 013-2019, being a bylaw to establish user rates and fees of the building department. Bylaw to prohibit and regulate noise within the town of Orangeville, and a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its closed and regular council meeting held today, March 18th, 2024. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Prendergast and Deputy Mayor, last questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And I will just ask now for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful evening.